What if the biggest flaw in the Big Bang Theory was never Raj's awkwardness, Howard's sleaze, or even Sheldon's arrogance, but the one person who always seemed the most normal? For over a decade, Leonard Hofstadter was framed as the emotional core of the show, the relatable scientist, the voice of reason, the so-called good guy. But behind that friendly smile and insecurity was a character who never really evolved, even as the entire world around him changed. And that single, hidden flaw? It quietly unraveled the most beloved relationship on the show and sabotaged one of TV's boldest moves in its final season. The truth is, the Big Bang Theory secretly exposed its weakest link 13 years ago, and most fans didn't even realize it. Let's dive in. At first glance, The Big Bang Theory seemed like a classic sitcom that got funnier with time. Characters fell in love, grew out of their bad habits, and embraced new challenges. Amy brought out Sheldon's humanity. Bernadette turned Howard from a walking harassment case into a husband and dad. Even Raj made progress awkward and stumbling. Sure, but he at least tried. Then there was Leonard. While everyone else evolved, he stayed comfortably stagnant. He fell back into the same patterns, the same insecurities, the same excuses season after season. And the moment that revealed this problem, it wasn't a dramatic plot twist or big breakup. It was when the others started to grow, and Leonard didn't. By season 5, the entire friend group was shifting. Sheldon was in a committed relationship. Howard was married. Amy and Bernadette became integral to the group dynamic. But Leonard? He got back together with Penny again. And it wasn't a fresh start. It was the same loop. The same jealousy when another guy talked to her. The same emotional neediness. The same fear of not being enough, not just as a partner, but as a person. What's wild is that the show never addressed this as a flaw. Instead, it framed Leonard's clinginess and passive-aggressive guilt trips as romantic, as if his emotional volatility was somehow endearing. But it wasn't growth. It was a rut. Meanwhile, Howard, the character most viewers wrote off early as irredeemable, changed completely. He stopped chasing women and started respecting them. His journey from pervy creep to supportive husband was one of the show's most surprising arcs, and he earned that evolution. Sheldon, the emotionally detached genius, became capable of love, compromise, even vulnerability. He signed relationship agreements, faced his flaws, and eventually married Amy, something unimaginable in the early seasons. But Leonard? He clung to his image as the nice guy without doing the work. His insecurities weren't just personal, they impacted everyone around him. He'd hijack conversations to make himself the center. He'd use humor to deflect accountability. And he constantly portrayed himself as the one making sacrifices even when that wasn't remotely true. For a long time, viewers didn't notice, because next to Sheldon's ego and Howard's past behavior, Leonard seemed like the most decent guy in the room. That's how the show masked the problem. Leonard looked good by comparison. But once those other characters matured, Leonard's flaws stood out like a sore thumb. He didn't just fail to grow, he refused to. The show had multiple opportunities to develop him. Instead, it kept resetting his character. And nowhere was that clearer than in his relationship with Penny. Penny started out as the bubbly neighbor with big dreams and no direction. But by the final seasons, she'd matured into a confident woman who knew what she wanted and, more importantly, what she didn't. One of the most powerful turns in the final season was Penny deciding she didn't want kids. It was bold, modern, and grounded in her truth. Leonard wasn't on board. He'd always wanted a family. But instead of having a real conversation or showing growth, Leonard defaulted to guilt and pressure. The show played it off with humor, but the undercurrent was unmistakable. Leonard didn't respect her boundary. He just waited for it to disappear. And in the finale, it did. Without any build-up, any arc, or any reasoning, Penny suddenly announces she's pregnant and excited. No hesitation, no explanation, just a reset. One of the most daring character decisions the show ever made was erased in a single line. Why? Because Leonard didn't have to grow. He got everything he wanted without changing a thing. Penny, the woman who had matured into someone confident in her choices, was sidelined for the sake of Leonard's happily ever after. And here's the thing, that wasn't just bad writing. It was the culmination of the Big Bang Theory's biggest flaw, the refusal to hold Leonard accountable. He didn't have to grow because the show never made him. It's no coincidence that when you look at fan criticisms of the final season, Penny's arc gets brought up the most. Not because she changed, but because she didn't. Because the writers forced her to regress so Leonard wouldn't have to face conflict or growth. It wasn't just a betrayal of her character, it was a symptom of Leonard being the weakest link all along. What started as a lovable underdog story turned into a quiet cautionary tale about stagnation. Everyone else evolved, stretched, adapted, but Leonard stayed locked in the same emotional feedback loop, and the show rewarded him for it. In the end, the real Big Bang wasn't a cosmic event or scientific theory. It was the slow, silent implosion of the character who was supposed to to hold the group together. The show may have tried to hide it behind laughs and heartfelt moments, but 13 years ago, the cracks were already showing, and now they're impossible to ignore. So here's the question: was Leonard ever really the hero? Or was he just the best disguise for the show's biggest problem?